A nominating committee is a must for branches to ensure effective leadership. And effective leadership is a must for branches to be successful. The nominating committee should be a full-time job and a standing committee. It should focus on developing successors and identifying them for future officer roles by giving them training opportunities. Also, of course, they are responsible for putting together the slate of officers. If a branch waits too long, it tends to take the expedient route. It finds a guy who's willing to take the job and puts him in the job. This rarely works. It's much better to have a planned approach to it coming from your nominating committee. Our vignette focuses on the ideal nominating committee. It's a far cry from what usually happens in the typical situation. We have Jim, the director of the nominating committee, and Larry, a nominating committee member, who is also an influential member of the branch.
Can you believe it, Jim? Here it is January, and we already have a number of candidates that might fill our vacancies in both our officers and our directors.
Having already developed a partial list of potential candidates gives us a big jump on the effort.
I understand that we need to have new members represented on the branch executive committee, but we also want to have seasoned leadership members of our branch. The requirement to have new members makes sense since over a third of our membership has only been around for 3 years.
And our nominating committee covers all the bases. We've got the chairman of the golf committee, the assistant members relation chairman, the guy who runs Dine Out, and one of the wine tasting groups. You're an outgoing director, and I'm a past Big Sur.
As I understand it, we need to re-elect all of our officers and directors every year, even though some of the positions serve for 2 years. Most of the officers are willing to serve another year, so we only need to recruit a new little sir, an assistant treasurer, and 3 members of the branch executive committee. One of the guys we talked to last year about serving on the BEC has indicated that this year he may be able to do it. That's one down.
I have a list of candidates we reviewed last year. You remember we placed a request for volunteers in the October bulletin. Well, we have the names and backgrounds of 3 members who responded, and Ed has a list of newer members from the latest 4 years. We want to have a third of our members in the BEC represented by new members. After all, half our members have only been with the branch for 5 years, and they have different ideas and interests we want to use.
The newer member list has their name, their sponsor, last company, and occupation. It also includes their activities and leadership roles. There are several SIRs with accounting or financial experience on this list, and we could interview their sponsors and friends to list 3 or 4 candidates for assistant treasurer.
Could another of these members serve as a director? Let's get the rest of the nominating committee and bring them up to speed. Then take a look at both lists to select 3 or 4 members for further research. That would leave us to find a little sir candidate.
We pick up the recruiting effort a couple of weeks later.
Well, it looks like we've got 2 great candidates for the little sir position. Now all we have to do is convince them to accept it, but then again, that's the hard part.
There's no silver bullet when it comes to recruiting leaders and team members. It takes time and thought. But here's some things not to do. Expect that asking for volunteers will get candidates. Go it alone. Make a long-term commitment. Assume no means never. Fall for the ABIC trap. Any butt in the chair. Conduct a recruiting interview without thorough planning. The primary way things get done in SIR is by drawing on personal relationships and being prepared. Effective recruiters draw on these relationships to identify potential leaders and team members. From then on, it's a 3-step process: preparation, contact, and discussion. Step 1, preparation. Develop a written description of what you need to have the candidate do. Your job description is a good place to start, in addition to the materials on the sirinc.org website. Review the SIR Leader Valued Behavior List. Open-mindedness, recognition, influence others, consensus problem-solving and decision-making, and knowledge of SIR. Ask yourself which of these behaviors are particularly important to the job you're recruiting for. Think of those branch members you're acquainted with and develop a candidate list. Then, take the job description you prepared and the valued behaviors you selected and think to yourself, which of these candidates has the right stuff? If you can't come up with enough candidates, ask other influential leaders in the branch. The branch nominating committee might be a ready source of candidates. Once you have the list, think about why candidates might decline the job. Some possible reasons might be, I'm too busy. Have an accurate estimate of the time it's likely to take and share it with him. Narrow the job down to take less time. Point out the donation of his time will significantly help the branch grow and prosper. I'm gone too much, or I travel too much. Tell him that other team members can take up the slack while he's gone. The job you described doesn't interest me. Ask him what role in the branch you'd like to fill, and get the leader of that role in touch with him. I'd like to help, but I'm afraid I'll be sucked in forever. Ask him if he can serve for a year or 6 months. Then reassess after that time is up. Step 2, the contact. Make your contact with the candidate in person, maybe before or after a branch meeting, at the golf course, the 19th hole, in at least a semi-private place for the job you're recruiting for. If you're not particularly acquainted with the candidate, consider asking a mutual friend you have clued in to set up a meeting with the three of you. If there's more than you and the candidate involved, make sure you and your helper arrive at the meeting at the same time. This way the conversation won't start prematurely. Also make sure you and the helper have decided which role each of you will play during the discussion. If there's more than you and the candidate involved, make sure you and your helper arrive at the meeting at the same time. This will prevent premature discussion. Also, make sure you and your helper have it clearly defined as to which role each of you will play. Step 3, the discussion. Begin the discussion by getting the candidate to talk about his experiences and serve. Ask him about activities he belongs to, what he thinks of the luncheons, how his wife enjoys the branch co-ed activities, how many friends he has made. The key is to get him talking. Then follow up with, as you know, enter his name, I've been appointed, tell him your role for the branch. It's a critical role and tell him why it's critical. Then add, I've given a lot of thought who might be the ideal guys to help me, and your name is on the top of the list. Here's a description of the job the branch and I need you to do. I plan to recruit, enter a number, more guys so we can spread the workload around. That way none of us will have an excessive burden to carry. I can promise you all the training and support you will need. So now, what do you think about taking this role? And most importantly, wait for his answer. The candidate will either accept, which is great, or present objections to accepting. If the candidate objects, you must answer those objections. Think about the responses you prepared in step 1. Then ask him again if he'll accept the job. You may need to do this several times. If the candidate does not accept the position, you need to move on to your next prospect. But first, ask the candidate if there are other positions in the branch he may be interested in, and report that information to your nominating committee. Now let's move on to our learning points. Don't make leader recruiting an event. It needs to be a year-round effort. Staff your nominating committee with members who are respected, know a number of other members, keep an updated candidate list, and supplement it with volunteers and newer members. Elect all branch officers and directors annually, even if the position is multi-year. Ensure your candidate list has newer members included, with their name, date joined, sponsor, last company, occupation, branch activities, and leadership roles. Use the 3 proven steps to recruit leaders. They focus on preparation, contact, and discussion. If the candidate doesn't accept, thank him and talk about other positions he might fill.